Here is a requested review of True Romance, a fast-paced action flick written by Quentin Tarantino and directed by Tony Scott. First of all, I'm aware of the elephant in the room here. I know it's been a long while since I gave my incredibly childish rant about Gladiator, but while I don't think I delivered my points very well, I still find Gladiator and its director, Ridley Scott, to be very overrated. So what about his brother? Tony Scott is famous for his overly macho action films that, regardless of any flaws, at least look great. Both Scott brothers have always had attention to detail, but Tony more so than his brother, I find. It's well known that Tony Scott will take his time, where Ridley is on a fiercely strict schedule when making movies. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen too many movies by Tony Scott, but True Romance is definitely my favorite one so far. The movie is mostly about the exploits of Clarence and Alabama. Clarence is a goofy-looking movie nerd who is obsessed with Elvis Presley and helps operate a comic book store. One day, a beautiful girl played by Patricia Arquette bumps into him at the movie theater, and Clarence is only too happy to go on a date with her after the film. But after Clarence gets lucky, Alabama confesses that she's actually a call girl who was hired to give Clarence a good time on his birthday. Things get complicated when they fall in love with each other, and Clarence vows to get her out of her line of business. This turns out to be not as easy as first thought, because her pimp is a vicious gangster named Drexel, played by Gary Oldman. Clarence takes him on and obtains a large amount of cocaine. Alabama and Clarence get married and head west to sell the cocaine to Hollywood producer Lee Donowitz with the help of some other friends. Now, that summary doesn't take into account all the little character moments that make True Romance so memorable. The movie is filled with famous actors chomping into a classic Tarantino romp that includes gangsters, witty dialogue, movie references, and lots of shooting. Quentin Tarantino initially wrote this screenplay with a non-linear storyline and a much more bitter ending. Tony Scott's team ended up making the story completely linear and changed the ending with one crucial detail. But the results speak for themselves, because this movie truly combines the qualities that both Tony Scott and Quentin Tarantino have always shown. Christian Slater is at his best in this movie, playing a dumb but lovable guy who will gladly do anything in the name of love, which leads him to always try and be the gallant hero. Patricia Arquette truly earns the title of hooker with a heart of gold in this movie. For all her being a prostitute attached to murderous gangsters, Alabama is surprisingly innocent and girlish a lot of the time. Now granted, there is a very harsh moment in the film where an enforcer, played by James Gandolfini, brutally beats her for information, and she shows herself to be quite capable of fighting back. She and Clarence make a very naive but fun couple, and we want them to escape out of this mess somehow. We also get Dennis Hopper playing Clarence's father, Clifford, who must make a terrible decision in order to save his son from the gangsters. The lead gangster in question is played by Christopher Walken, whose only scene in the movie is a showdown between himself and Dennis Hopper's character. And trust me when I say it's the best scene in the movie. We also get Saul Rubinek playing a coked-up movie mogul who was supposedly based on both Joel Silver and Oliver Stone. I guess Tarantino never forgave him for improving natural-born killers, but who's gonna complain? There's also a group of cops trying to stop the drug deal, played by Tom Sizemore and Chris Penn. Brad Pitt shows up for a bit as a stoner confined to lying on a couch, and perhaps the most bizarre character is the ghost of Elvis Presley, played by Val Kilmer. The ghost basically can only be seen and heard by Clarence, and it's this being that gives him advice on what to do. Kilmer has a pretty thankless job imitating Elvis, especially since we never see his face, nor does he even get acknowledged as Elvis Presley, but that was to avoid a lawsuit, so that can't be helped. True Romance takes an adrenaline-filled action movie filled with witty moments, provided with one of the greatest conclusions to any action film ever made, and it turns out to be a true cult film. It's a movie for movie buffs, rising above the level of just a dumb action flick. This movie combines writing of Tarantino coupled with Tony Scott's direction in a time period when they were at their productive highlights. Definitely a film worth checking out if you haven't already seen it.